Several years ago, my family vacationed in Seneca Rocks, West Virginia, and I had my first experience of rock climbing, other than a wall at a sporting goods store. And it was a 75-foot rock face, and there was like a 500-foot one next to it. I chose the smaller one. Of course, I had a safety rope on, and I was on belay, if you know how that works. Anyway, so I climbed up, and the rope only works if you fall, which I didn't, so I made it all the way to the top. And it was just exhilarating. Number one, I did it. Number two, I'm on the top and I'm looking out over these absolutely gorgeous mountains of West Virginia. And it was like awesome. It was worth the challenge. It was worth the risk. It was worth, the exhaustion to do that. And I still look back on that as a very significant experience for me in life. So I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you to something this week and next week that could be difficult for you. Maybe you've already got these things under your belt. Maybe you don't. No matter what your age is, you could benefit from these things, and we're gonna lead up to that. So margin. We're gonna be talking about margin. Margin on a piece of paper are the the part you don't write on, right? What would it be like if we wrote edge to edge, top to bottom on a piece of paper? It would not look very good. There would be no margin. Margin in finances is money intentionally not spent. Money in time, in terms of time, are minutes, hours, days, weeks, perhaps, not intentionally filled up. Margin leaves room for the unexpected. Margin leaves room for those things that pop up without them becoming a crisis, without them becoming additional stress because of the time or the financial crunch. Now you know this. If you always leave for work and just the exact amount of minutes it takes you to get there, and you have to go across a train crossing, and there's a train, and you sit there, you get there, and what do you say to your boss? You lie. You say there was a train, unexpected. No, you go over that crossing every day, and you just got hit on that day with that, and you were late. Not that you're liars, not that we lie, but just think about it. Let's be honest. We don't plan. We're not too good at planning for the unexpected, even when the unexpected is relatively expected, right? So, if you wait till the last second to write a paper, if you're in school, now this didn't used to be an issue, but ever since the old-fashioned typewriter went out of existence, you can still probably find them at an antique shop. You might have one in your basement, but ever since they're electronic and your power goes out and you waited to the last minute to write that paper, all of a sudden that becomes a relatively major crisis because, of the stress. If you commit every penny that you earn to experiences and items for you and your family, and then your car needs repairs, what happens? It becomes a major or a mini crisis. And there is stress. There is anxiety. It's what I used to call, praying for a mini miracle from God. And then what do? We pull out the credit card and we increase our monthly payment that's already stretched beyond reasonable borders, and more stress, more time, and the minimum monthly payment to an already overstressed budget increases. Now, we live in an era of unprecedented opportunities. You know that. Like, technology is exponentially increasing. And along with that becomes opportunities. There are more things to buy. There are more things to spend our money on. There are more things to spend our time on. Just think, 100 and so years ago, people didn't think about going on a cross country, let alone go out of the country on a vacation. That would take months to do something like that. You'd get on your horse and ride into town. And now you can get in a car and drive across town, drive across the state, drive across the country, and there's just more. And of course, there's an ever-increasing cost. And that's not a bad thing. But these unprecedented opportunities of things to spend our time and our money on seem to be taken advantage of by most Americans, because the more opportunities we have, the more we exercise those opportunities, And whew, before we know it, there's too much month left at the end of our money, and there's too much time left at the end of our energy. And the spirit of our age, John Eldredge says, is busyness. Busyness. I just be honest with you, I sometimes get tired. I don't say this and I don't act it, but I just kind of let you know, this goes through my mind, listening to people who tell me their schedules. And I go, wow, there is no margin in your life. And no wonder you're exhausted, and no wonder you're stressed out, and no wonder, and we have to take all of that into play. We also live in the most marketed to society, country in the history of the world. Now, what do I mean by marketed to? Advertisers are doing their job, and they're doing it extremely well. For instance, we could go on and on about this. Stadiums and arenas used to have names such as Three Rivers, Riverfront, Hoosier Dome. Now stadiums and arenas remind us of who paid the most money to get their name on that building. Nationwide Arena, Nationwide, or a hospital, Nationwide Children's Hospital, or U.S. Bank Arena in Cincinnati. And we could go on and on and on and on and on. And that's not a bad thing. It's just we're marketed to. And you know what? It must work. Because if it didn't work, they'd stop marketing like that. And so the whole purpose of marketing is to get us to spend our hard-earned money on their product. We used to joke, Elder Bierman, who's now obviously defunct, used to have a saying, people who want you to have what you want. And there was a little jingle that went with that. And I changed it to people who want you to buy what we sell. Because I really think that's more of an honest motivation. But who's going to say that, right? So we're marketed to, which gives us more and more opportunity to buy more and more things. And we become aware of what we don't have. And man, I need that. I got to have that. I got to have the newest, the latest, the upgrade. Whether it's an iPhone or a computer or technology, whatever it is, we're spending more and more money on more and more things, and sometimes it seems like we may not even be stopping and thinking about what we're really doing to our personal financial situation. Well, some of us might remember when the only home video game system was made by Atari, and the first game was Pong. I played that game, but my friend had it. And this little square thing went back and forth and ever and fast, way, way back in the early 70s, late 60s. Pong. Now think about it. How many different game systems are there? There's Wii. Wii has several different versions to it. Xbox has several different versions to it. Is Sega Genesis still a thing? I don't know. But there's so many different opportunities. And how many people have more than one of those? I went and bought some presents at Christmas several years ago, and at like a video trader kind of place, secondhand. And I bought a few different games for a few different game systems. And the checkout clerk, young man, looked at me and said, "Wow, I want you to be my dad." I said, "I did not buy one of these systems. Just want you to know that. They were all purchased by my kids' own hard-earned money." There's more things to buy. More things to spend our money on, more places to go, more ways to spend our time. And even when we take a little free time and plan a vacation, what do? We fill it up. We spend it. And then we spend the rest of the year paying for it. And we have to come back from vacation to rest up before we go back to work. All of that leaves us with little or no margin in life. Think about it. We fill our lives edge to edge, time-wise. We fill our lives edge to edge financially, and we have no margin in life. Now, there's a guy, a medical doctor by the name of Richard Swenson, has written a book called Margin. And the subtitle to it is Restoring Emotional, Physical, Financial, and Time Reserves to an Overloaded Life. Listen to how he describes a marginless versus marginal living. Marginless is fatigue. Margin is energy. Marginless is red ink. Margin is black ink. Marginless is hurry. Margin is calm. Marginless is anxiety. Margin is security. Marginless is culture. Margin is counterculture. Marginless is the disease of the new millennium. Margin is its cure. So, we want to address this week and next 2 of those issues. 1, too much month left at the end of our money. We're going to talk about that today. Next week, too much day left at the end of our energy. We're stressed out. We offer excuses to what might be more important matters, saying things like this: I don't have the time. I can't afford. I don't have the money. And if we were maybe a little more honest, and I would encourage you to do this, to be a little bit more honest. Can I step and be a little bit personal here? To be a little bit more honest. And instead of saying, I can't afford it or I don't have the time, say this and see how it impacts you. I'm sorry, I can't. I've chosen to use my time in another way. Or I've chosen to spend my money in another way. When an opportunity that comes to you that would really benefit your life, and you offer one of those 2 excuses. Now, sometimes they're valid. We get that. But when an opportunity that would come your way that would genuinely benefit your life, and you can't afford to or you don't have the time to, could it be because you've not created margin in your life? So here we go. Over 30 years ago, I read through Proverbs. I've done that several times. But on this particular journey through Proverbs, I wanted to find every verse in it that had anything at all to do with money, finances. And so I wrote them out by hand. And then I typed them on a typewriter, because that's how long ago it was. I did not have a word processor computer. I don't think they were even a thing at that time. Yep, that's how old I am. Anyway, I came up with 9 different categories. I then categorized them, and I came up with 9 different categories. I'm not going to talk about all these, just really one of them. But here it is. Here's where the 9. Honoring the Lord by the use of our resources, pursuing wealth, generosity and giving, savings and indebtedness, getting rich quick, co-signing, work versus laziness, illicit income, and then miscellaneous, which kind of just covered everything else. So while a student at Ashland Seminary, I went back and looked this up, in 1993, I took the class called Old Testament Wisdom Books, and I submitted a paper to Dr. Gary Statz, in partial fulfillment of the requirements of the course OT 512, Old Testament Wisdom Books. I found this in a file. It's not the graded copy, but it is a copy, because they told us back then, you better make a copy of your paper, because if you turn it in and we lose it, you're still responsible to turn in the paper. So always make a copy. So I paid attention to that. So here's that paper. I found it in a file, probably one of the few things I've kept from those days. Anyway, I wrote this paper, and I included an appendix where every one of those verses that I mentioned were listed, and I found there's 56 different references. So some of those are multiple verses. So there's easily 75 to 90 different scripture verses in Proverbs alone that speak to the wisdom of a wise financial approach in life. Proverbs alone. So I want to encourage you to do the same thing, or I'll sell you that appendix for $25. So just kidding. You can word search it now very easily on the computer, and you can copy and paste and do it probably in 25 minutes. Took me hours. A long time ago. So one verse from there we're going to look at today. One verse that could literally revolutionize your financial situation. One verse, when implemented, has that much power to it. One verse can change your life. One verse can cause you to scale the heights, look out from the ledge, and enjoy the vista and enjoy the view, and to look back and to say, I am really glad I did that. Here it is. It's already up on the screen. Proverbs 21:20. There is precious treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man swallows it all up. So in this one verse, there's a contrast between what? Wisdom and foolishness. To be wise, to be foolish. What does it say it's foolish to do? What does it say a wise man will do? Someone who is wise will create margin in the use of their resources. They will not use them all up. They will intentionally not use them all up. They will adjust their lifestyle to be less than what they make. They will intentionally do that. It's foolish to use up all of our resources according to Proverbs 21:20. So now there's two reasons to create margin in your finances. Now this is worth taking notes for, and the notes are in the back of your bulletin. You can do that. So number one, and you've heard this phrase, it hasn't gone out of vogue yet. Maybe it's a little bit outdated in terms of the terminology, but here we go. Number one, to save for a rainy day. Now you've probably heard that term. Maybe grandpa used to say that, to save for a rainy day. Now, there's some things we know about rainy day. Rainy days come. So what's the analogy for a rainy day? Some kind of crisis, some kind of emergency, some kind of unexpected expense. Now, the things about unexpected expenses is you can expect them to happen. You know that. Sooner or later, it's going to rain. Sooner or later, the unexpected is going to happen. Who has ever bought a car that never in the lifetime of that car ever had to have new tires, an oil change, had to be repaired, some kind of expense went into it? Who has ever bought a house, even a new house, that some kind of expense didn't have to go in to that house to repair something, to replace something that broke? You know, who has ever done anything like that? And yet when that kind of stuff happens, it seems like a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people act like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. One of my favorite things to say is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how much. And I've added how often to that as well. Just because it rains one day does not mean it's not going to rain the next or the next year. Seems like there's a reason that Dave Ramsey in Financial Peace University, he's got 7 baby steps. The first baby step is start as a $1,000 emergency savings fund. This is what he teaches, before you start saving for retirement, before you start giving more, before you start saving for your kids' college, before you start paying off other debts, put at least $1,000 in an emergency savings fund. And what's the reason for that? Because you're going to need it. It's going to happen. And if we're used to dipping into the, MasterCard, Visa, Discover card kind of mentality, what are we going to do? We're going to increase our indebtedness, and we're going to write more to the edge of the paper of our financial situation. And we're going to stretch ourselves even further, and it's going to create more stress, more anxiety, more worry, and we're digging ourselves into a deeper and deeper hole. It's foolish to think that rainy days don't happen. Therefore, it's wise to prepare for them. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when, and in that matter of how often. So who here knows that one of those proverbial rainy days is going to happen? It's around the corner for your life. It's coming. It's coming. And I'm not talking about major disasters, although could be. In 2012, we were awakened on a September morning early, about 5:30 in the morning, to discover that our house was literally on fire. And long story short, about 1/4 of our house, including our entire garage. There's some pictures. That's our garage. The previous picture was our kitchen, and you can see that burned into. So about 1/4 of our house, including our kitchen, living room, and entire garage, kind of went up in smoke, literally. Next to the garage was a boat. You can kind of see it off on the wood structure over there. But here's where I want you to go. Okay. In that garage was my Triumph Speedmaster motorcycle. Ooh. Yeah. Say, oh, next picture, please. Oh, there's what was left of it. Oh, come on. Show me some sympathy. Show me some sympathy there. So we had just gone through. Now, this sounds like a promo for Financial Peace University, but it's not. This is our personal testimony. We had just gone through Financial Peace University for the first time as a couple. And we had decided, because what happened with the motorcycle and the boat, like that motorcycle I bought for $2,500. The insurance valued it at $7,500. So there's a little bit of a windfall. The boat next to the garage was insured, and there was the boat structure wasn't damaged, but there was a lot of fire embers that fell in the cover and all the upholstery, and it was a total, but they let us keep the boat. So we had this boat. I thought I was going to be that guy with a rundown, broken down boat in his side yard in perpetuity. After that, I was able actually to trade that, barter that for some work that was done on my house in the subsequent years. So we thought about, hey, this would be a great time. We've got a little bit of surplus. This would be a great time to put in a screened-in back porch on the back of our house. Wouldn't that be awesome to have a screened-in back porch? But we had just gone through Financial Peace University, and we decided that we were going to start our emergency savings fund. In fact, we went past $1,000. Because we really didn't have any surplus beyond that. We were doing okay, but we were literally living paycheck to paycheck. We didn't have debt. We had a car payment and a house payment, and that was it. So we weren't in any big, deep problems. It wasn't driving a Corvette. We didn't buy a $500,000 mansion. So we weren't in a lot of deep debt. It was certainly manageable. But we decided to start that fully funded emergency fund with that money. And then we continued to add to it for the next several years. Fast forward to 2019. This is where you can say all again. We were hit with a $16,000 septic repair on our house and a $4,000 car repair within 3 months of each other. Guess what? We had it. It was in our rainy day fund. Because it's foolish to spend everything you've got. It's foolish not to plan for a rainy day. Now we are not frantically but diligently seeking to replace that. It's not a matter of if or when, but how much and how often. So to save for a rainy day. Number 2, to save. Now this is going to be hard. Brace yourself. Oh, by the way, I replaced that motorcycle. Same make, model, year, different color, and paid $3,500 for the motorcycle that they gave me $7,500 for. And that was just a God thing. So anyway, to save for future purchases. Now, my stepmother used to do this when I was a little kid, and I thought she was nuts. I thought she was crazy. She didn't even have a checking account. She would save up cash, and she would go to the bank, she would go to here, she would go there, and she would pay all that with cash. And that was in the 60s. And I thought, how old-fashioned is that? Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to have a checking account or anything like that. I'm just saying that that's what I saw and how foolish I thought that was. But here's a novel idea. Save for future purchases. Pay cash. Remember cash? Remember cash? Do you have it in your wallet? You don't have to, but a debit card can act like cash. So here's some ideas. Let me just give you some thought. Now, what you do with this obviously is up to you. Nobody's accountable to me, and I just want to give you some ideas. So why pay cash? Why save up for something? Number 1, you won't be paying interest on it. I'm going to give you an example about interest in a moment. And number 2, you just might change your mind. In the process of saving your money, you might decide, I don't really want that. I don't really need that. Or I need that money for the rainy day that just happened, that I wasn't really sort of expecting it, but now I expect it because Pastor Jeff said it was going to happen sooner or later. Anyway, so you might change your mind. Let me give you an example about credit. A credit card with a $5,000 balance. with a mere interest rate of 15.9. Mere. Right? What are they now? Like 24? Whatever. I don't know. Interest, where you make only the minimum monthly payment. Only, that's what they want us to do, is to make that minimum monthly payment would look something like this. $110 the first month, $109.04 the second month, because the principal went down a little bit, $108 the third month, $107.14 the fourth month, $106.20 the fifth month, and in addition to the 5 monthly payments listed that I just went through, another 338 monthly payments will be required to pay off that $5,000 credit card debt at a mere 15.9% interest. After all 343 payments have been made, you will have paid $7,129 and 1 penny in interest, plus the original balance of $5,000, for a total of $12,129.01. So whatever you put on there that cost you whatever we did that cost us $5,000, just cost us $12,000 and 343 months of our life. Wow. About 10 years ago, we paid cash for a car for the second time in my life. And there's some providential circumstances that led to that. And using an online loan calculator the other day, I recently figured out that doing so saved us about $1,000 in interest, paying cash. $1,000 would have gone to interest over 60-month loan time, and it only took us about 26 and a half months at the rate we were saving to have the cash to pay cash. It's a money saver. It's a money saver. Now, you know this. We live in the day of quick and instant. Amazon and Apple are the premier. And I'm not knocking them. They're doing a great job at what they do. But one-click ordering, and it can be delivered to your house. And that smile will come on your front porch and make you really happy the next day. Right? Apple, you can have it set up. You set up an account. You can go into an Apple store, pick up any item in the store, and walk out with it without visiting the checkout clerk. And you know what? It scans something, it goes onto your account, and just the convenience. The convenience of, because we're looking for the quick and convenient way of doing things. And Amazon, boy, if you don't like it, you can return it at their expense. I mean, it's like, and they're still making a few bucks a day. Right? And it's just, they're doing a great job at what they do. Because they know we like quick and convenient and instant and impulse buying. How many of us have unopened boxes from Amazon? I don't know if you do or not. I don't. But do you have unopened boxes from Amazon? How many things are on the way? How many things are you looking forward to? How many of those things do we really need? Right? So we paid cash. Oh, we've done that a couple of times. It's really fun shopping for a car with cash. You get a lot better deals too, by the way. Anyway, back to Proverbs 21:20. A wise man does not run out of resources because he's planned to not do so. A wise man adjusts his standard of living to be less than his current income. A wise man does not spend more than he makes. A wise man creates margin in his finances, which reduces stress and creates peace. It's foolish to live paycheck to paycheck. It's foolish to spend everything on what I want now, ignoring what I'm going to need in the future. It's foolish to think rainy days won't come or accidents and emergencies will never happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, how much, and how often it's going to happen. So creating margin in our finances. We'll do at least 3 things. I know your notes say 2 things. I added a third. So here we go. Number 1, less stress. Less stress. Terry and I talked about this. We hated writing a $16,000 check. To kiss that money goodbye was sweet sorrow. but the relief and the peace that came because we didn't have to borrow that. We didn't have to live without sewage backing up at our basement frequently. The peace that brought. So there's less stress. Number 2, it can create the joy of giving. The joy of giving. The joy of giving. Let that sink in. Number 3, what we could simply call financial freedom. You've heard it said, I owe, it's off to work I go. Think what life could be like. I've recently talked with a guy in Granville. In fact, he's one of the co-leaders of the Financial Peace University class that's happening. I'm going to tell you more about it in a minute. His wife started paying off debt, about $120,000, student loans. He said we've whittled away a lot of that, but we thought what it would be like to not have debt. We thought about mission work. Right now we know we can't afford to be on a mission field. We've got to get this debt paid off. What would it be like for you if your debt was paid off? What would it be like for you if you had a financial reserve? So that if you got laid off, you lost your job, you had a reserve. And losing your job or some kind of crisis happens and you have a reserve. Just allow yourself to dream and to think about that for a moment. Financial freedom. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is what to the lender? Slave. Slave. I work for First Federal Savings and Loan because I owe them a mortgage. I am a slave. A part of every day, Tom, that I get up and go to work is not for you, it's for First Federal Savings and Loan. I am a slave to that debt. They own it. They've lent the money to me, and I have to pay it back, and we are paying it back at an accelerated rate. Financial freedom. Financial freedom. Maybe for you, you've thought about these ideas in the past, and they've seemed like too lofty of goals. Too unattainable, too unrealistic. But if you listen to any financial advisor, they will always tell you it's not a matter of how much you make, it's how much you spend. No matter what your level of income is, we can adjust. We can adjust our lives to have surplus. Some it might be easier, some it might be way more challenging. For some of us, we might have to sell some things, we might have to get rid of some things, we might have to eliminate some payments, we might have to have, a garage sale, a barn sale, or whatever. But you have to think, is it worth it? Is it worth it? What would it be like to be able to give away a car to somebody who needs it? What would it be like to be able to bless somebody at Christmas time? What would it be like to be able to give generously to the foster care children at Christmas time when we do our Be Generous camp? What would it be like to give generously to your church on an ongoing? What would it be like? What would it be like? And instead of offering the excuses, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. Maybe it's time for you to do something that would significantly change the course of your future so that one day you will look back and you will say, I am really glad I did that. Now, because I know, you ever been to one of these sales pitches that say you got to make up your mind right now, right? Make up your mind right now. I've been to a few of those. I won't go to another one, but I've been to a few of those. Got to make up your mind right now because of that instant. So here's it's not my sales pitch. I am not promoting a program. This has no benefit to me personally. This is for you. Right now, tonight, instead of boundaries, you might need to go to Financial Peace University. It's happening at 6 o'clock at the Granville campus. So put that slide up if you would, please. You can go online. Because if you missed last week's lesson, that's okay. You can watch that lesson online. You can easily get caught up. And if you've gone through Financial Peace University before, you are an alumni and you can attend for free. Just show up. There'll be signs that direct you. And instead of thinking, hey, that was good. I really need to do something like that in my life. I really need to create margin in my finances. Instead, and then a year from now thinking, boy, I wish I'd have done that. Act. I would admonish you as much as I know how in love. Act today. More importantly, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Let's face it, a lot of the stuff we spend money on is trying to answer questions of our heart. We're looking for wholeness. We're looking for completeness. We're looking for that smile in here. We're looking for happiness. And somehow we've bought into a society that says happiness comes from things that you own, how much they cost, how many you've accumulated, experiences that you have, vacations that you can take, things that you can have. And none of that answers the questions of our heart. Only Jesus can do that. Only Jesus can do that in your life. Have you begun a personal relationship with Him? If you haven't, today needs to be that day. Let's pray.